Welcome to the Service Contractor All-Star Podcast. We talk about how to make more money, grow your team members, and build the business of your dreams. I'm the host, Trevor Maddux, owner of Motion Ops, the premier software for service contractors. Enjoy the show.
Hey guys, Trevor here with the Service Contractor All-Star Podcast. Super stoked to have you guys on for another episode. Again, we're sponsored by Motion Ops. And this episode is going to be cool. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. A lot of times we have guests on. Every once in a while, it's just me and you guys talking and going over stuff. Sometimes we'll do Q&A. This one's going to be a little different. Just want to talk a lot about sales and my own background and experience. It's good for you guys to kind of know a little bit about me since I'm the host. But the more you get to know me, obviously, you just kind of know more about my background. I think more than anything, I want to share a few things with you guys where there's some parallels or learning lessons where you can see kind of the evolution as far as where a lot of the knowledge comes from and application and some of the results. And so that being said, guys, I think a lot of you guys know we built Motion Ops because I've got a handyman remodeling company called Cranston Handyman Remodeling. It's operating in a few states. And we built Motion Ops out of our own frustrations and not having a good software in place to be able to go help scale, grow, and automate and, improve businesses. And, before Cranston Handyman Remodeling, I got my start into home services, right? So, and it's good for us to kind of talk about documenting the journey as we scale and grow that business. You guys can see those lessons and parallels and what we're learning and how we're applying things and how you can apply it in your own business. So, awesome. So let me talk a little bit about just how I got into selling home services. So straight out of high school, guys, I was actually selling Cutco knives, which has little to nothing to do with home services, but selling Cutco knives, some of the top knives in the country. Right out of high school, some guys talked me into doing it. I was like, hey man, this looks like some good money. Let's do it. So yeah, I made pretty good money doing that for on and off about 6 months to years, one of the top producing reps, for that company in the country for a while. And then after that, I served an LDS mission down in Mexico. It's a 2-year thing. Did that for 2 years, and I came back, and it was wild. I was like the most broke I'd ever been, which is weird for me because I've always worked hard. My dad's a GC out of California, so I was working for him. I'd always make money working for him, or I'd be selling stuff, Cutco knives, making money. And I came back, and 2 years of not making money, my bank accounts are drained. I'm like, man, I don't have any money. Like, what do I do, right? And I remember it was weird because I want to take girls out on dates, and I'd be like, oh, I want to take her out, but it's like I don't have money for it. What do I do, right? So times are hard when you're having to make a lot of decisions about money, and I had to figure a way out. And so came back from my mission, had some buddies in college that were making good money, driving nice cars, Beamers, Audis, all this stuff. And I was like, pulled them aside. I'm like, man, what are you guys doing to make money? Are you guys selling drugs? Like, whatever it is, I want to know. And they're like, no, it's not drugs. It's better. I was like, well, what's better? Like, it's selling alarms. And I'm like, what's an alarm? I never had an alarm growing up, wasn't part of my life, didn't really understand it. And they kind of educated me a little bit about it. It was this company back then. It was Apex Alarm, APX Alarm. And, they eventually became Vivint. A lot of you guys have heard of Vivint Smart Home, Vivint Solar. As part of that whole transition, was there for a while. But long story short, they sold me. I was like, hey, this looks great. And that was my foray into being able to go ahead and sell home services. And so the whole thing back then, it's still fairly similar. They still do this, but you basically pick up and go sell for 4 months out of the year, a bunch of college kids. And, in my case, we're going from where I went to school in Utah all the way out to Detroit. And so was there committed for basically 3.5, 4 months of selling. And yeah, we were there. There's a little bit of training, not a ton. And I was like, dude, I'm going to crush this. I'm going to break all these records. I'll be amazing. And I literally got hit with a ton of bricks. Like I sucked. I literally didn't know what I was doing. Like, man, like this is weird. Like I always excelled. I always did well with sales, and for me to suck. And I literally went the first week without selling a single alarm. I was just like complete humble pie. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know why I'm not selling. I was very frustrated to say the least. And I think a lot of us have been there, right? Like we have these ideas of businesses we want to start. We have ideas of, launching our own business, doing home services, doing landscaping, doing cleaning, doing whatever, right? And then you hit this block, and often that first block is a lack of sales. So, like, how do you get from like no sales to excelling in sales, and how do you get there? I want to tell the story to help us actually understand how to reverse engineer a lot of lessons from here. Okay, so I went the first week, absolutely sucked. I had these ideas of grandeur and wanting to make a certain amount that summer, and I was like, man, I'm like, do I go home? Do I quit? What do I do? Luckily, I'm a very stubborn person where once I say I'm going to do something, I'm committed to it. I'm going to keep doing it. And so I was like, okay, going home's not really an option. I need to figure this out. So I remember after a week of not selling, I'm sitting in the office, and before we'd go out and go sell, and you sell door to door, right? Before you go out and go sell, you have this pump up meeting, training meeting, and kind of just going over numbers from the previous day. And I remember looking like around this room, like vividly. I'm like looking around the room, I'm like, oh man, this guy right here got a sale, and he's literally wearing like socks and Tevas. Like, how is that guy selling and I'm not? Then I look at the next guy, I'm like, this guy's missing some teeth and he's selling. And this guy over here is on drugs, I'm pretty sure, and he's selling, right? And I'm like, okay, if all these guys can sell, like, I got this. This is fine. I'll figure this out. And so that day, I just committed myself to excellence, right? So the lesson is you need to learn to commit and make a decision. So my decision was, okay, going home's not an option. I'm just going to figure this out. So you have to make a decision for excellence and for success. So I made a decision for success, and then you have to be all in. So all in was the next step. So I decided to be all in. And at the same time, I was actually reading a book that was a very pivotal book for me that I've mentioned this book before. This is probably one of the most life-shaping books that I've had from a business standpoint. I recommend for all of you guys to read. It's Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. So in there, he teaches, one, the importance of making a decision, but he also talks about the importance of having a model. So I'm like, okay, I need to go from sucking at what I'm doing to being top in the industry at what I'm doing. Like, how do I do it? I need to have a model. Okay. So I made a decision for success. I was going to do whatever it took. You have to sacrifice too. Sometimes people don't realize, like, you can't just make a decision, not sacrifice. You have to sacrifice. So I took a model and I sacrificed that whole summer. So literally, like, other guys be going out and seeing movies and doing all stuff. Like, I do some of that, but like, I would definitely just, I'd come home and I'd study, and I'd get up and I'd study. Well, I'd go to the gym, work out, because that's part of, success is taking care of the physical. And then I literally, like, if I wasn't selling, is usually studying and learning what I could and learning from models. Okay. Because I realized if I want to be uber successful, I need to condense that learner's curve from like a year to 2 years down to like a few weeks. And the only way to do that is by hyper basically just hyper extending your learner's curve and really just jamming as much as possible into just a few weeks. And so literally I eat, sleep, and drink just everything sales, right? Like, that was it. So I studied the pitch, the script, whatever, and I had models. So unfortunately in my office, we didn't really have tons of high performers. Like, I very quickly started being the top performer. So I was like, dude, where's my model? So I was able to get videos of a bunch of the industry's top producers, and I just watched those religiously. Okay. And then I also had sales books from a bunch of the top producing sales trainers in the country, and I started implementing a lot of their advice and techniques. Now, what's really interesting, and this is the thing about models, guys, if you have the right model, you can reverse engineer things very quickly. And so I watched these videos on these guys, and I'm like, I don't know why they say this. Like, it doesn't make sense. I'm not hearing other guys say this, and I'm kind of saying this. But this guy's, 4Xing my results, so I'm just gonna say it. And what's crazy is like, I would just say it, and I didn't know why the guy said it, but then I would actually see the feedback from the client. It's like, oh, I see why that guy says it now, after I'd start seeing feedback from the client, seeing why they'd move forward or how they'd move forward. And I'd actually start reverse engineering why they did things. So the key of a model, guys, is you need to reverse engineer successful people, how they eat, sleep, drink, think, their pauses, their tonality, like everything. And with sales specifically, you know, what they say, how they say it, why they say it, how they're standing, like all those things. And if you can do those things, you can be very, very successful, right? So I started reverse engineering a lot of their success and a lot of their techniques. And very quickly I started selling, right? So, day one, after not selling for a week, I sold. And the cool thing is I started selling every single day for the rest of the summer. It wasn't really a question of, am I going to sell? It's more, hey, am I selling like 2 or 3 or 1 or whatever? And so having that commitment to a model and to a process really helped me get through that learner's curve. I was also religious with my schedule, right? So with sales, you should have a schedule. I was very disciplined. If we're supposed to be on the doors by 12 or 1, I was on the doors by 11, 11:30, right? I'd get out there early. and I'd stay till the very end. I wouldn't, leave. And then on top of that, like I said, I'd just be studying religiously because I wanted to get through that learner's curve as quickly as possible. So, now that being said, that year was crazy because it was like, went from honestly feeling like the worst person in the team to very soon I was the top producing rep in the office, out producing my managers, out producing, everyone on the team. So it's like, okay, cool. Like I could kind of model my managers for a second, but like now I need to go to these other people. So that's where I was pulling from those videos and the ideas from a lot of these top books from top salespeople in the industry. Fast forward to the end of the summer, I ended up being the top rookie rep in the entire industry. Sold 175 alarms in 3 months that year as top rookie rep in the industry. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of what catapulted my success into home services, right? And so I think the lessons learned here is if you want to be successful in sales and home services, you kind of have to pay um, an oversized due to get that success. I think a lot of times people, they want to be successful in sales, but not pay somehow, some way, some shape, some form to get through that learner's curve. And the thing is, and I see this all the time, it's very similar to what I went through. I was like, yeah, dude, I was great at Cutco. I'll be great at home services. And people don't realize you often have to reset when you change industries, when you change products, when you change services. So what I didn't realize going into it's like, yeah, there's going to be a reset. And for me, that reset was roughly about a week, maybe a week and a half, whatever. But so you have to reset and be ready for that learner's curve and be ready for that next step to have your success. So okay. So anyways, hopefully that's good advice for you. You guys can learn some lessons from it. Find a model, learn from top producers, and make sure you're willing to go ahead and actually pay an unjust or undue amount for your success. People don't realize life is often about exchanges. You can't have something for nothing. You have to be willing to exchange something for that. Now, that being said, guys, from there's a lot of lessons that can be drawn from being able to be successful in managing teams. So after my first year, I was like, yeah, I just want to keep selling. I'm good. I don't need to manage. Well, they kind of talked me into managing. Next thing you know, I'm managing a team the next year. It's kind of funny how it happened. So how do you go from being a hyper producing salesperson to a sales manager? That's another set of lessons. And I want to go back actually, because there's a lot of lessons you learn about being able to go ahead and actually be a hyper productive salesperson. So I had to take a model, but you also have to learn scripting. So one thing that really helped me a lot is I actually started taking down what they call a sales journal. I'm a huge proponent of if you want to be successful at sales and home services, you need to have a sales journal. If you don't have a sales journal, I highly recommend it. A sales journal is a place where you keep all of your notes, okay, about your script, about your process, about what you're saying, about what you're doing. Also, what are the 5 or 6 objections you run into? How do you handle them before? How do you handle them after? You need to be religious with this. And this is a part of being a hyper productive salesperson. It actually catapults you into being a sales manager. But I want to talk about this because you need to learn this efficiently yourself before you can start training other people. And, as a business owner, like you need to go from salesperson to sales manager and creating a sales team, sales culture, VP of sales, or your own sales org, everything else, right? So that being said, and I'm a firm believer that if you're running a business in home services, you kind of have to be the VP of sales. You got to be the one driving that. You can try to outsource it, but sometimes it's hard. Like you need to understand this. You should understand most parts of your business. So that being said, to be successful in sales in and of yourself, it starts with a sales journal. You need to document it. Now, why do you want to document it? So many salespeople try to fly from the hip with their sales. And if you fly from the hip with your sales, you can't systematically create a result that you want each and every single time. So again, you should write down high level, what are your steps to your sales presentation? You should write down, word for word, kind of what you're saying and why you're saying it and how you're saying it. And if you realize, holy crap, I could swap out this line for this line, that's the way that you optimize. Our last guest that we'd had on here for the last episode is Ari Meisel. He talks about optimize, automate, outsource, right? So the first step to get really good at sales is you got to optimize this. Okay. So you need to optimize by writing, and it starts by writing out a sales journal, writing out word for word, like what's your pitch? What's your intro? How do you handle inbound sales calls? How do you handle those appointments? And then also what are your 5 or 6 objections? How do you knock them down before? How do you knock them down after? And what you'll realize with time is if you don't have it documented, you're kind of just going in circles and you're never really improving. But if you actually have it documented and systematized and really well written out, you can start reviewing and making improvements and optimizing. For me, optimizing starts with documentation and reviewing it and always making it better, right? So if I ever start a new company or new business or a new industry, I don't care how good the pitch is out the gate. Like, I don't. I just need something written, and I know I'm going to go optimize and make it better with iterations, right? Okay. And then you want to review it and get better at it. And what's cool is, as you learn from other people in the industries, you maybe go to like some events or some trade shows or whatever. You talk to other people that work in the business that do stuff. You're going to learn things that are good. When you learn that, you want to document it and write it down as quickly as possible. Now, I was weird, man. Like, I would be at like these sales meetings for like, all these sales dudes, sometimes like, hundreds of people, thousands of people, just, bunch of managers. I would be like sitting there with like a laptop writing stuff down. People are like, dude, what are you doing? But like when I started like training teams and developing teams and breaking records myself and having teams break records, people understood like I was doing that because I wanted to literally absorb everything humanly possible from people. And, I have this weird uncanny ability where like I hear things and I can type pretty fast and get it fairly close to word for word, right? And you got to realize, guys, if you try to hear things and implement them, it's like 20-30%. And so a lot of times it's our own pride or our own whatever, it gets our own way of our success. Dude, it doesn't matter. I don't care if I look weird typing it down. Like when all's said and done, I'll type it down and just we'll smash, the competition's results, and they'll see the difference when all's said and done. So when you go to events, when you go to shows, when you go to places, dude, sit there, computer, whatever. And you've got ways to record now, voice recordings. That's cool too. I like notes and recordings, but I like notes because I feel I can go through those a lot faster and reverse engineer them. And there's some cool things you can do with uploading those notes into ChatGPT now and helping refine your scripts. It's not a bad idea too. We actually take a lot of our recruiting scripts and sales scripts now, and we'll actually run it through ChatGPT to see if they have improvements. Not a bad idea, right? So that being said, and I never actually just go straight to ChatGPT for that stuff. I usually have it refine what I already have to see if I like it better. That being said, you want to have a sales journal and a sales process, okay? Because now, like for you, it's going to help optimize what you do and you can become better. But when you get to a point where you start hiring salespeople and you start needing to train people, this is mission critical. You need a baseline to train them with. Now, we use Trainial at most of our companies right now for our documentation process. Trainial is great. I'm a huge proponent of it. I recommend it. So if you guys want to check it out, it's really good. What I like about it is it's easy to find. There's a search bar where someone's got a question about, I don't know, can't afford. Boom, they type that in, then all the training on can't afford pops right up. That's what I love about it. So that being said, guys, I'm going to go back to kind of the story at Vivint, asking to train offices, manage offices. It's a huge learner's curve. It's like, holy crap. Like, back then I was, I don't know, 21, 22, and I was expected to go run a multi-million-dollar sales org. I think back then we're moving like 3 million a year, 21, 22, first time doing it. I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. You guys might've felt that before. Like I'm running this, million, 2 million, $5 million business. What do I do? You got to figure it out. Right. And you got to be willing to be humble and willing to realize you don't know a lot. And you realize that when you go from just yourself selling and, having our techs go out and go do the installs to, oh crap, now I need to go help these other salespeople be successful. It's a lot more work. I think a lot of times we want to grow a business thinking it's going to make us more free. Often it's giving us more work because there's more responsibility, more things that come along with it, more people you got to worry about. You got to worry about people making enough money and being successful and everything else, right? First year of doing this, I was still pretty decent at selling. I was not great at managing. Just being honest, there's a learner's curve. And as a business owner, you need to realize there's a learner's curve. You got to learn how to recruit. You got to learn how to manage. You got to learn how to develop your people, right? Sales, in my mind, is the first thing to really master. After that, then it's like, okay, let's go recruit. Let's go learn how to recruit. Let's go learn how to manage. And there are literally just tons of layers and levels of skills and knowledge that you can stack on top of each other for each one of those, right? So crazy year that year. Man, uh, I didn't realize how hard things could be until I was asked to go manage this year. And let me give you an idea. So sometimes it's like, man, it's like super saturated where I'm at. It's really tough where I'm at and all this stuff, right? So that year, it was probably the most saturated selling environment I've ever been in. Now let me give you an idea, and I go over this because there's a lot of learning lessons that we can get out of this. So that year, we were asked to go manage a sales team selling alarms for Apex in Denver, Colorado. It was 2007. That year was probably the most saturated selling environment out of this industry that it's probably ever seen or ever will see. We had, I think, 12 different offices for different companies in the population of Denver, and each office probably had roughly 20 to 25 people on average selling, and they're all selling a similar product because we're all selling Honeywell alarm systems back then. Uh, yeah, pretty similar product, just for different companies and different brands. Okay. So it was to the extent that it didn't matter what neighborhood we were in. It wasn't a question of if we'd have a competitor knocking on doors in the same neighborhood at the same time as us. It was just more of a question of how many would we have. And it's to a point where we would knock on doors and customers would have our pitches memorized. Like, no, I don't want a free alarm. No, I don't want to put your sign out in front. No. And not only that, they'd actually have our next 2 or 3 rebuttals memorized as well, too. And no, if you give me a key fob, I'm not going to listen to you. And like they had it all. Like it was wild. And so we had to get very creative, right? So it forced us to realize with sales pitches, you actually want to counter position. So counter positioning is a skill set in sales, which is if everyone's giving a sales pitch or if everyone's using marketing going one direction, you kind of have to go a different direction. Does that make sense? So we got very good about pitching people and making them feel like we were more of a consultant or advisor, and we weren't necessarily there to sell them anything. And, this is kind of where a lot of the whole like counter positioning with sales came. So everyone's pitching, hey, put a sign out in front, get a free alarm. We learned, hey, we're sponsoring homes, and a sponsorship pitch. You'd have to come up with something different to distinguish. And this is my first four-way, if I can even say that word, foray into counter positioning. And you always actually want to do this in sales, but I've had to learn how to do this really quick in this environment. If everyone's going one way, you got to go a different. So we started going the sponsorship route and a different route. And so it was different. So people would actually listen to us. And you want to learn to do that, because when you sell, one of the worst things you want to do if you're selling a home service product is to be one of many. You want to learn to be one of one. Okay. And so once you learn to be one of one, once people understand that, sales become much faster. They become much easier. Okay. And so it's just a simple principle. Everyone's saying this pitch or this script. You need to come up with something different to make it feel and be different than that. Now, the good thing is just pivots. We're finding success doing that, but it was still crazy saturated. So sometimes you got to be willing to pivot, make adjustments. And so we did some research and we're looking around. It's like, what do we have here we can go into that can be a little more successful, less saturated? And we were like, dude, Grand Junction, Colorado. We're like, small market, but we can go pop in there and go pop. We made some adjustments. We got out there for the last month and a half, and we went from literally being one of the teams at the bottom third of the company to boom, being the number one team in the company overnight for the last 6 weeks. And it's the same people, same team, same people, just less saturated environment. Made a quick pivot, and yeah, I mean, we broke a whole bunch of records. I was, like the top rep in the whole industry for those last 6 weeks. Our office was crushing, and so really cool lessons that we can learn from. But that being said, guys, learned a lot that year. Learned a lot about counter positioning. Learned a lot about being able to manage a team and recruiting. Now, what are the applications and things that you guys can learn from this? Again, counter positioning, that's a big thing to remember with sales, and also making adjustments for markets or maybe different industries really quick. If you realize you got something that's super, super saturated, you got to be willing to pull the trigger and make adjustments. Now, in future years, I got better at sales, recruiting, and actually training salespeople, and some things that I want to share with you guys. And we started breaking a bunch of records in future years. Don't need to go over a ton with that, but top first year reps. I was one of the only managers to actually get not just one, but 2 first year reps go do over 300 accounts their first year, which is like crazy numbers. Now, I started doing a lot of things that were just different. So counter positioning works in a lot of ways, guys. It works from a sales position, works from a marketing position, but also works from a training position. So if everyone's training a certain way, how do you train and develop your people in a way that's better and different that helps them get better results, right? So we started implementing a lot of things that I think you guys can focus on. So we'd have daily huddles and daily training. We actually started implementing sales training cycles. So you'll realize that for salespeople to be phenomenal, there's not a lot of things they need to learn. Okay. Usually it just comes down to like 5 or 6 things, maybe 7. So what you want to do is if you have daily or biweekly or tri-weekly sales, just make it a cycle of those 6 or 7 things and recycle them over and over again so they can learn them really, really well. So maybe it's like, for us back then, it was breaking their preoccupation, the sales pitch, the closing and writing up the sales, objection handling, question-based selling. Okay. And once they understand those 5 or 6 concepts, but you focus for half an hour just on those things. Okay. So that was step 1 is learning how to actually get that sales cycle and really dialed in. Now, you don't train on just that. It's like you still on the front of the meeting, you got to go over numbers, got to get them pumped up. You got to, go over some logistics, some things that they need to know. Okay. And at the end of the meeting, you train on that for a little bit. You end with them reporting back what their goals and numbers are, and then a quick little motivational thing to get them pumped, and then you let them jet. I heard someone explain this once, but when you run a sales training meeting, you want to educate, elevate, and evacuate, the 3's of a meeting. So you run a meeting that way, and then boom, you jet. Now, that being said, and if there's like incentives or like, throwdowns, competitions where people talking crap to each other, those get salespeople pumped. Now, that being said, you want to have a format where a portion of the format, again, is numbers, reporting, logistics, being able to go ahead and actually go over just incentives. And then in between all of that, you're going to go over the meat, which is that portion of the sales cycle you need to train those salespeople on. You go over motivational thought, incentives, then boom, you break the sell. Now, that being said, you also the next step of all this is we got that format in place. We started seeing good numbers, but where the numbers started going crazy is we implemented something called a Moore method. You guys may not have heard about this, but it's a math teacher. His name was Moore. I forget his first name, but his whole concept is you need to get really good at teaching things, but to get people to really understand things, they're going to learn more by teaching it themselves. So he actually started having his own class teaching. So we started actually in meetings for the first few weeks of meetings, we'd actually teach everyone. And then after that, just everyone's teaching each other. Now, as a teacher, you're going to sit there as a leader, step in and correct and add some insights. But your people will start going crazy with their own learner's curve in sales the moment they have to actually learn it and teach it themselves. So Moore method is a game changer there for your sales guys. Okay, I got a lot I could talk on. Future years, I started learning a lot about recruiting and managing and developing people and stuff like that. There's lots of layers to that. But I think just here we unpacked a ton about, sales, right? And so again, when you're running a business, guys, you got to realize there's 3 main categories you need to focus on. Now, there's subcategories and other things, but like to get really good, you got to get really good at marketing and sales. You got to get really good at recruiting and HR. You got to get really good at field ops, okay, and production. Like those are like for me, like the main buckets. There's sub buckets, but those are the main buckets of actually growing and scaling your business. Now, with Motion Ops, it is built to help you with all 3. Most of our competitors, when you look at the field service industry, they're usually good. And this is why we say that, their CRMs were a velocity accelerator. So most of our competitors, they're good usually at like 1 or 2 of those 3, but they have some serious issues in the way that they're built to help you at all 3. Motion Ops, in my mind, is the true, velocity accelerator because we help you accelerate all 3 of those things. Now, today, guys, been able to chat and jam a lot about sales. I could talk your ear off about sales for a long time. I don't want to go over it a ton. But also, I hope in future episodes we can dive deeper into recruiting and operations and production. You'll see with a lot of our guests that we have on the show, I'm trying to specifically target people that are talking about a lot of these things and trying to give you guys more insights and listen to other episodes. Just thinking about some of our recent guests, Ari Mizell, he's literally, in my mind, one of the top efficiency gurus in the country, just talking about processes and production and optimizing and everything else. Like, listen to that episode. Juan Godinez, he was one of our recent guests. He was talking a ton just about sales. His sales stuff is some of the most legit stuff you're going to see, right? Then on top of that, Denny Pesci, another guy on sales. We've got some upcoming guests that I'm fired up about, just about recruiting. I've talked a decent amount about recruiting in some of the Q&As. A lot of stuff about production and operations come from like Brody, and a lot of these other guests we've had on here. So keep that in mind, guys. And I would challenge you, if you want to listen to more episodes of the podcast, listen to a bunch. But ask yourself, am I getting a lot of sales stuff, recruiting stuff, or operation stuff? And if you really want to take your game to the next level as a business owner, don't just listen to it. Yeah, listen to it, but write down notes and take notes of what's really pertinent and put to-do items and action items in place if you really want to get the most out of it. And I find the most productive people, you talk about spaces of time. So from learning something where you're like, dude, I need to do that, to actually implementing, okay? There's a space of time. So from oh crap, I need to do this. And you guys will listen to this show, or you'll listen to other podcasts or audiobooks. You're like, dude, I need to do that. Okay. When you guys hear that and feel that, and you'll listen to stuff and you'll feel it. This happens a lot. Oh man, I need to do that, to actually implementing it. I find that the most successful and best people in business, that space of time from oh crap, I need to do that, to implementing it is almost nothing. They literally take and implement it within hours or days. Okay. Whereas those that struggle, take a while for their business to grow and scale and everything else, they're like, oh yeah, I'll make a note of that and maybe get to it sometime down the road, and maybe I'll be successful sometime. I challenge everyone listening to this, anything you listen to on this podcast, anything you listen to on any audiobook or whatever you're listening to grow, take that time from, yes, I need to do this, to, yes, I'm implementing it. Take that time and make it as small and short and quick of a window as humanly possible. And if you do that, that alone will probably help change your business and your game immensely in the coming weeks, months, and years. I promise you, that one skill. And anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. This has been another amazing episode of the Service Contractor All-Star Podcast. If you like what you're hearing, please like us, and, drop us a line, share this, subscribe, all the things you can do to podcasts. And I promise you guys, you'll absolutely benefit from this, and keep implementing and keep listening, because there's going to be tons more phenomenal content coming out. Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
This has been the Service Contractor All-Star Podcast. We talk about how to make more money, grow your team members, and build the business of your dreams. I'm the host, Trevor Maddux, owner of Motion Ops, the premier software for service contractors. Join us next time for more amazing content.